Hello, wonderful people. Nice to see you all. Oh, lovely. Hi, everyone. Welcome, welcome.
Hi, Ed.
Hi. Great to see you all.
Hi, Ed.
Hey, y'all. Lovely. Wonderful. I am so glad to be here. Hey, Kathy, Cindy, Martha, Pete, the Irvins, Judy, Hoppy, Nita. Yay. Hey, Lane.
Hello.
Nice to see you, Hope.
Happy.
So, um, hey Dee Dee. Hey Dee Dee. So, let's begin our 15-minute sit. We have a couple of people who've told me they're out because of all sorts of things that are going on. Nevertheless, we are here and we will have a 15-minute sit and then we'll begin the PowerPoint at 7 on the dot. So, I'm going to light the candle and here we go. Let's begin our sit. It's wonderful to be with you all tonight. Thank you very much. I need to say a few words about our day to explain maybe some strange energy I may have that you would feel tonight, and also to explain why you didn't get a PowerPoint and why the PowerPoint we're going to use is a little on the unpolished end of the spectrum. Hope, and thank God Hope is here with us. We got on the road at 6 this morning to go to Sewanee for a funeral and then drove back after the funeral. Our dear friend Corky Carlisle had died, a wonderful priest, and so it was a gathering of a lot of clergy and a lot of seminary people from Sewanee. And gorgeous drive, cold weather when we were there, and thank God we got back in time for my leading and facilitating the centering prayer group that happens here. And we had 8 people tonight. That was the biggest crowd we've ever had, so that's a celebration on my part. Nevertheless, I had I'd hoped that I would have a little more time to polish up this PowerPoint. Nevertheless, for me, it's full of stuff, and I'm hoping that you will engage me on it, and then I will add in all of the images that I had wanted to put in and send that out to you tomorrow. And Anna, you'll certainly have it for anything that you need tomorrow evening. So, anybody else need to say anything to be here? I can understand that a lot of us can bring in some really strong energy, and it's a fair thing for anybody to want to say anything to be here. Hope, please unmute yourself.
I want to talk about how hard it was to go north and not go to Chattanooga. I really missed all the people in Chattanooga, so I was really missing you today, guys. So, much love. That's all.
One of my favorite comments from Hope was, on the way home, I said, "Do you want to drive home first?" And she said, "If I drive home first, I will, while you're asleep, go to my favorite shoe store in Chattanooga and buy things while you're asleep." So, anybody else have anything to say to be here? Then let's get started.
Ed, I just want to chirp in.
Please.
Patty and I thought last Tuesday was really amazing. Powerful evening. And we're just honored to be a part of this group. Thank you all so much.
Thank you so very much. That means a lot to me. Let's stay there for a second. Can you say, Terry, a little bit about what was powerful for you all? I want to take notes, and I want to learn as a teacher about these kinds of things and what impacts people.
I thought, and we didn't say we were talking about Jesus all evening, but I think we were. This notion of becoming who you already are. Wasn't that Jesus' experience? He became the child of God and discovered that his God was a loving parent. And I felt that's what we were talking about all evening.
That's very powerful.
And I think, Ed, you got a big break last Tuesday because I was waiting to see what you were going to do with 1 Corinthians 15:3, and we were all doing so much talking, you were able to skip over it.
Unpack what 1 Corinthians 15:3 is.
Jesus died for our sins.
Yeah.
I was waiting to hear what you were going to do with that.
Yep. I
And
definitely.
you probably luckily avoided it. didn't have time for it.
I'm very happy to come back to that. Probably that's going to be on the agenda for next week, not tonight.
Okay.
Nevertheless, I'll allude to that. But I'm also making a note about your saying that becoming who you already are is what Jesus's life was about, to be sure. Anybody else? Thanks very much, Terry. Okay. Not seeing any hands. Let's get back to that share. And let me unpack what this is about tonight. So, there's a lot going on in my heart and mind during this Advent. And I want to make sure that we understand that the context is that we're in Advent 2, the week of Advent 2. I'm still rather reverberating with now 10 to 15 year experience with Albert Camus' statement, which we're going to unpack tonight, that I just, in the midst of winter, I discovered within myself an invincible summer. I also have been kind of amazed at how impacted I've been over the death of Frank Gehry. Frank died last Friday. He and I had a relationship. It was not always a pleasant one. Nevertheless, it was very, very meaningful. And I loved him and loved his work, and simply want to say a word about that tonight. And I am, I want to still unpack a little of my sermon from this past Sunday, because in my mind it was a place I'd not gotten to until last weekend, in understanding a little more about the contemplative life and all of the transformational power in it as an alternative to the original sin paradigm. And what Terry's talking about, Jesus died for our sins, and the traditional old paradigmatic way of understanding what that means, of Jesus dying for our sins. So, my friends, all of that is very present tonight, and it includes the experience of this funeral Hope and I attended at Sewanee today. And I have a few quotations from the sermon that was really amazing. So, I've got Advent 2, a new understanding of Advent for me. Frank Gehry's death, his creative powers, illustrated in this image of his wonderful place in Bilbao, and Albert Camus, and then Corky's funeral today. Now, all of that, I am thinking, is summarized by a new definition of contemplative prayer. I'm still being fed by Cynthia Bourgeault's understanding of Thomas Keating, and this latest prose book of Thomas Keating, which we still haven't finished. So I'm still focused on contemplative prayer, and I am looking at the facet or nuance tonight of that contemplative prayer is saying yes to the inner light that is stronger than our bleak midwinters. Now, let me stay with that for just a second, and please, please, please tonight, above all nights, just interrupt at any point where you need to challenge or more information. So, Martin, you have your hand raised. Let's hear from you, please.
I was fortunate enough to be a student of his.
Martin, I can't hear you. Can you increase your volume?
I obviously know. Can you hear me?
No. It's a very faint volume we're getting from you.
I'll do what I can from my end.
That's better.
I was a student of his in graduate school.
Can you lift your own vocal volume?
The highest volume I can take it.
There you
That's
go.
great.
There you go.
I was a student of his at Yale, and he was a visiting professor. He was both humble and mesmerizingly talented and energetic. And I agree with you that he's gone.
So you're talking about Frank Gehry.
Yes.
Yeah, very good. Wonderful. Anybody else while we're paused? Okay, let me then go back to this. So, the link to my sermon came out too late this afternoon for me to send it out. Some of you were watching it anyway, and I've already commented on it. Thank you very much. I really appreciate the feedback. But the first point, and the reason I'm saying all of this is because it's directly related to contemplative prayer. And I was talking about 3 different Advents. One about what's happened in the past in terms of the birth of Jesus. One is about way out there in the future, the end of time, the coming again of Jesus, the advent of that. But the other is the internal advent. And the internal advent has to do, in my understanding, with that lifelong project of our asking, is darkness stronger than light, or is light stronger than darkness? Particularly that comes into play when we have personal midwinters in which it's hard to see the light. So that's the context. And then I went from there over to Albert Camus by talking about the fact that Hope and I went to Newtown, Connecticut pretty soon after Sandy Hook, the horrible thing that happened there, December 14, this coming Sunday, is I think the 14th anniversary of that event. And another person and I were asked to speak, and I got to talk with some parents prior to the speech, and one of them just absolutely floored me. They all floored me. But this particular mother who lost her daughter at Sandy Hook told me in a coffee conversation we had prior to my speaking that night to a kind of a town hall gathering, that what had come back to her from her Toronto education, she grew up in Canada, was Camus' statement that in the midst of winter I discovered within myself an invincible summer. So I went back. I don't know why this is not advancing. There it is. So here is an excerpt from an essay that Camus wrote after the Nazi occupation of France, which he had gone through, and a lot of fascism in his native Algeria. Oh, and just to remind us all that Camus won the Nobel Prize for Literature in 1957. And he went back to this seaside resort to kind of collect himself. And it was there that, while kind of staring at the ocean, all of us know about the power of staring at the ocean, that he had this experience that in the middle of winter, he at last discovered that there was inside himself an invincible summer. Now, what is happening in my thinking is a universalizing of the contemplative experience of unitive consciousness. So there was a lot in that sentence, and what I'm doing is discovering that what Thomas Keating and Cynthia Bourgeault are saying to us about the essence of the contemplative life and contemplative experiences is something that is universal. And here's a person who's not particularly religious, Camus, talking about his own contemplative life. So I'm going to kind of go over some of this that I've underscored, and then I want to bring everybody back in and see if this is in any way vibrating with you the way it is with me. So that first sentence, this is an excerpt. There are two thirsts one cannot long neglect without drying up. And those two thirsts are loving and admiring. There's merely bad luck in not being loved, but there is misfortune in not loving. And all of us today are dying of this misfortune. Now, I am struck by how this insight from the mid-50s has relevance for our life, collective life, in 2025. For violence and hatred dry up the heart itself. The long fight for justice exhausts the love that nevertheless gave birth to the fight for justice. In the clamor in which we live, love is impossible and justice does not suffice. That is why Europe hates daylight and is only able to set injustice up against injustice. But in order to keep justice from shriveling up like a beautiful orange fruit containing nothing but a bitter dry pulp, I discovered once more at Tapaza, this is the beach town that he was visited from his childhood, that one must, okay, folks, before I say this with all this energy, I think this is what all of the contemplative greats are telling us in terms of our responsibility to have a certain spiritual practice. And here it is. One must keep intact in oneself a freshness, a cool wellspring of joy, to love the day that escapes injustice and return to combat having won that light. Now, light is going to be really important to connect with Advent candles, okay? Here I recaptured the former beauty, a young sky. I measured my luck, realizing at last that in the worst years of my madness, the memory of that sky had never left me. This is what in the end had kept me from despairing. In Tapaza, the world began over again, every day, in a never New light. O light. This is the cry of all the characters of ancient drama brought face to face with their fate. This last resort was ours too, and I knew it. Now, in the middle of winter, I at last discovered that there was in me an invincible summer. Now let's just pause there. I would love to hear anybody who had any reverberation with that. And if you didn't, that's okay. It's happening to me. It's connecting me with Thomas Keating and Thomas Merton and Ilia Delio and the village, the contemplative village of unitive consciousness. Anybody want to comment? Please, Judy.
I was swimming this morning, and there was a full moon a couple nights ago. So we have the luxury of a glass enclosed pool, and I was facing west as I was doing my laps, and I looked up, and there's the setting moon. And God and I have kind of a contract when I'm swimming that He delights me with clouds and birds and jet contrails, and those are the three things I look for. But today I had the moon, and I'm saying I really like that. Thank you. I don't see any contrails though. And then just as I was finishing, I looked east, and there's one contrail going right straight through the clouds, and three birds on the yucca. And someplace in my listening yesterday or today, somebody said God is a surprise.
Yep.
Was that you?
That was I in my sermon Sunday.
I've listened to your sermon 3 times now, and I put it on, and I was in a group with on Teilhard Monday night, and I put it in the chat for them because a couple of them were complaining about having been to Advent sermons where the pastor talked about nothing but original sin, and they were pretty disturbed. I said, well, here's a remedy for you. So I sent them your homily. But anyway, that sky, that young sky, that word caught me in this reading.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't think my contemplative prayer is a yes to the invisible summer. I think it's a discovery of the invincible summer.
Yeah.
Thank
you, Judy. Judy, before you stop, just tell everybody where it is you live. It's just fascinating.
I live in Berlin, New Mexico, and I really wish I'd known you were in Albuquerque. I'd have gone up there immediately. But center, right in the middle of the state. It's called the hub city for that reason.
Wonderful.
And Berlin is Spanish for Bethlehem, as you probably know. So I live in Bethlehem.
I love it. Nita, did you raise your hand? Were you going to say something?
Sure. I loved your experience, and it brought to mind what happened to me today. Jim and I had been out to Hamilton Place, and you know how it's just crazy out there. And I was sitting in the car on my phone scrolling through Facebook or whatever, and something came up and it said, where can you find joy in this moment? And I looked up, and we were driving down Amnicola Highway, and the pine trees were just backlit with the sunlight, and the needles were just, it was just a stunning moment. And, you know, how many of those moments do we miss all day long, every day, because we don't take time to look? And I think that's what it's all about. It's presence. It's just presence.
Well, one of the reasons I love this essay from Camus, and by the way, a new book is coming out about Camus, and it was highlighted in the New York Times books section this past Sunday. And I think the headline was something about one of the most important thinkers we've ever had. So I'm going to weave Camus into our ongoing conversations on Tuesday night. But I loved this thing where he says, at the beginning of this quotation that two thirsts we cannot neglect without drying up. And those thirsts are loving and admiring. Now, we'll talk more tonight about loving. But let's just not leave the fact that both of you have mentioned experiencing the presence of the holy, the unitive, through admiring what is going on in nature. It's just crucial. Please, Richard.
Yeah, when I hear this, it resonates very deeply with me because, like Camus, I'm also an existentialist in my philosophical perspective. But for me, it's about balance. And I'm always in a state of beauty and sadness. And it's not like one overwhelms the other.
Oh.
And in so doing, I feel sort of a generative peace that's inside me because I'm not pushed one way or the other, but always attentive to the possibilities of beauty that's constantly there.
Yeah.
So, yeah, the balance part, I think, is very, 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 very important.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for bringing up balance. Now, I want to invoke, it's really clear I'm going to write a book about all this. The contemplative life in its non-duality, according to Cynthia and Keating, is about being able to hold the both and in the case with my friend who lost her daughter at Sandy Hook Elementary, she says she will always feel that grief, and at the same time, she is called to loving, courageous justice work in the world. So it's this non-duality of the both and that, Richard, you've just given voice to. There's more we're going to take a look at, but let me see if there's anything else, because this quote from Camus is foundational for what I want to get across tonight. And Terry, I'm going to come back to 1 Corinthians 5 because I love the fact that you're asking how do we interpret that when we do not have, or we are, some of us, I am, preaching that the doctrine of original sin took us off the rails from Jesus. It came in the 5th century, St. Augustine, and I have to tell the story. So I came to work yesterday morning after I had preached that sermon, and I laid into it more than ever before about, I wish we'd take the number of times that the word sin appears in the Book of Common Prayer and cut it at least by half and bring in the word love instead of sin, because I think it really does detract us from what Jesus is about. I really do. Anyway, I stopped in right across the hall here, and my colleague Rainey, who's preaching this coming Sunday, she was at her desk and she was bent over and she looked like she was in pain. And I said, "What is going on?" And she says, "I'm preaching Sunday, and I really do believe you about the doctrine of original sin is wrong and that we are not fallen. But how am I going to preach about Mary?" And we talked it through. And I gave her the PowerPoint slide that I'd shared with you all from Matthew Fox. And then I went and got my copy of New Seeds of Contemplation and Xerox chapter 6 she says, "How do I talk about sin if I'm not going to talk about its being what we are doomed to be. We are created to be. I said, false self, true self. And so I got Thomas Merton, and I said, you don't have to talk about original sin and the fallen nature of human beings when you talk about false self and the true self that is real, that's inside us. So we're going to come back to this, Terry, but I'm thrilled that here I have a colleague who is completely reorienting her sermon for this coming Sunday to get away from the doctrine of original sin. All right, I'm ready to move on. Anybody else? This Camus thing is big. Was there a voice? Yes, please, Barbara. Barbara, I was just talking about you in centering prayer, by the way. Here.
He was burning, yeah.
I have discovered, and it just fit in with what you were reading, like we'll be driving down the road and we'll be in traffic and I'll be in this state of mind, and all of a sudden I'll see the sky and it's absolutely breathtaking, and it's almost every day, and probably every day. And I have such an affinity for joy from nature, whether it's driving down the road and seeing a tree and suddenly the traffic doesn't matter anymore. I mean, I'm going to be aware of the traffic, but I don't care if someone cuts in front of me going 30 miles faster than he should be or she should be. But there is a joy that we can have and we do have in every day if we pay attention. Exactly. And I do see that as vitally important and like a light in sometimes dark times.
Thanks for bringing back in the light, because I think that's the Advent issue. Are you inside yourself discovering and are aware of the light that cannot be put out, that is inside you, the invincible summer? I think that's the Advent question. Martin, please.
I don't mean to jump on the Frank Gehry issue. There's a guru before him in the world of architecture that was so important. The gentleman's name is Robert Venturi. This book that really is probably the most formidable book of the last 50 years of architecture. It's something called Complexity and Contradiction in Architecture. And I would encourage anyone to read that that's so inclined, because it's dealing with these kinds of issues as buildings and space. Basically, he doesn't get religious, but there are outward and visible signs of what's going on in our heads and our hearts. What do we do with it? What does it mean? How do we translate it? How does it communicate across cultures and across time and to people that are alive today and in the future?
So what I want to do, please, is ask you to put in the chat the name of that person. And I'm trying to do something there that is not working. Anyway, I want to come back to that. So if you will, please put in the chat or send me a text with that person's name as Frank Gehry's predecessor and the issue that you just raised. Okay? So here I am scooting around. Then I'm going to keep going. So, thank you. Now, so Camus completes his statement by saying, for us today, there is an inner way. Now, it's just crazy how cookie cutter aligned this is with the whole notion of the inner Advent. Too frequently, when you have this doctrine of original sin and the fallen nature of humanity, there's no paying attention to John's gospel that says there is an inner light. Camus is saying there is an inner way, which I know well from having taken it in both directions, leading from the spiritual hilltops to the capitals of crime. If one forgoes a part of what is, one must forgo being oneself. This is what I'm dancing about. We're talking about one's true self that is in absolutely every person. One must forgo living or loving otherwise than by proxy. There is thus a will to live without rejecting anything of life, which is the virtue I honor most in this world. That we don't have to live and reject this inner life. There is a beauty, and there are the humiliated. Whatever may be the difficulties of the undertaking, I should like never to be unfaithful either to one or to the others. It is this both and. So, here's the citation. It was written in 1952 by Camus. In 1957, he got the Nobel Prize in Literature, and we're going to have to leave Camus for the night and move on. So here is the next point I want to make, about which I got so excited. Now, on the right are the central places in John's Gospel and in Matthew's Gospel, testifying to the fact that every person has light inside of them. And when we were created, each of us, we were created by the energy that is the light of the world. It is called in the first chapter of John's Gospel the Word, or the Logos. Richard Rohr has helped us understand that that's also about embodied love. It's also about the Christ. It's about, I like to use the word sunbeam of belovedness. In any case, all of us were made with that imprint, that thumbprint on us. And not only us human beings, but every cloud, leaf, lizard, rock, on and on. And that life is humanity's light. That energy of love is our light. And it is a light inside of us that shines in the darkness, a light that the darkness has never overtaken. 4 verses later, the true light which gives light to everyone was coming into the world in Jesus, in the baby Jesus. And then in the Matthew's Sermon on the Mount, Jesus tells the listeners, you are the light of the world. Your light must shine before others, so that they may see your good acts and give praise to your Abba God in heaven. So I ended my sermon Sunday by just launching into singing This Little Light of Mine. Y'all, it was amazing. People started just involuntarily holding up their index fingers and singing. I think it was a kind of, not something that happens every Sunday at this church. Now, what I was trying to do was pair it with the image that is before us, because the first lesson, the Isaiah lesson, the 11th chapter of Isaiah, talked about a stump out of which had come a brand new shoot. Stumps frequently are seen as something that's dead. And I found this wonderful image that shows that stumps have roots, have a root system, and they are being nourished by the root system of other plants, trees, and I would say the Creator's energy, love. And no wonder the shoot comes from the stump. And Isaiah is making the point that it is this shoot that is the light of the world, or the solution and will bring about a world of nonviolence. Now, that's a huge point. And I'd like to stop. Let me quit advancing. And let's see. Oh, I'm messing up here. Oh, this.
Hey, Ed,
Yeah.
we can't see the PowerPoint right now.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Uh-oh, golly Moses, what have I done? All right, let me see here what I'm going to do about this.
We can't see, but we felt your energy.
I am so excited about this stuff. Let me
Bar. Go
Yes.
back to share. It's not being shared anymore.
Okay. All right.
You click on share at the bottom.
While
Thank
we're
you, thank you,
waiting,
thank you.
I put a link in the chat to an article about Thomas Merton's reflections on Advent.
Oh, please. Oh, thank you. So I think now I've gotten back to the share.
Yep.
Yes,
Yay!
you are, but it's not.
It takes a while.
There we go. Yeah, it's
Okay.
coming. So you have to start it over again from the beginning.
All right, here's the thing that I just read. Can you see that with the stump?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, yes.
Okay. So on the right are the quotes that I was giving you. And y'all, I'm going to send y'all all of this tomorrow as soon as I polish it up. But there are the passages from Scripture about humanity's light. And on the left is the image that I found of an apparently dead stump having a live root system being nourished by other root systems. And I'm, in my theology, talking about God's root system also. And that stump not actually being dead, but having a shoot come out of it. Now, Nita watched the sermon Sunday, and she has sent me she's an amazing photographer, some more examples from her walks. So I'm going to put those in this. I've gotten her permission to put them in. And what they show, what they illustrate, is apparently dead stuff that's really not dead because we're not looking beneath the surface. What Thomas Merton calls the hidden ground of love. And what I'm saying that inner Advent is about is to understand that hidden inside us is all this light. So let me go and capture these. I don't want to miss these. Yeah.
I'm sorry to interrupt. This is Kathy.
Go.
Just to talk about the image there
Yeah.
of the roots and to bring it back to the terrible, horrible book wording that I've struggles with.
Yes, yes.
Do you think maybe the part where on page 44 he talks about that we're all that we already could be? Do you think, like, seeing that visual of the tree roots, do you think it's like the roots are there but we can't see them and all we really see is the tree part?
Absolutely.
And therefore we're already in there, and so as some people in the discussion tonight have shown, they're definitely evolving. Maybe when we evolve, we realize we have those roots down there. I don't know.
Yes. Yes. Thanks, Kathy. Thanks for coming back to that. I really, really appreciate that.
Well, I think that image is what kind of struck struck me with that because
Okay.
I'm, the visual learner. So, yeah, thank you for sharing that.
Thank you for commenting on it. Martin, you've got your hand up?
I don't want to rain on anyone's parade, but that is not the way trees regenerate.
Go ahead.
It comes from the side, not from the dead center. The dead center is not growing. It comes from the side. So,
Comes from what? What is that word?
Side.
it's coming from the side. It's not coming from the center. The center.
Oh, yeah. This is This is not science. This is an artist's reference.
Yeah, it's called epicormic branching. Is how it.
I love it.
Thank you. It's just I just don't want to mislead people to think that.
Got it. Yeah. All right. Now, let's see what happens when I do this. Okay. So, can you all see Thomas Merton and Dorothy Day now? Was that yes?
Yes.
Okay, good. So, Merton wrote to Dorothy Day in Advent, December 1961. And he said, persons are not known by intellect alone, not by principles alone, but only by love. It is when we love the other, the enemy, that we obtain from God the key to an understanding of who God is and who we are. It is only this realization that can open to us the real nature of our duty and of right action. So the reason this was important to me in terms of this internal Advent thing that I'm trying to get across is that so many of us are raised to think that in order to really be known, we've got to be really, really, really smart or have great principles or go on and on and on. Maybe a lot of power. And Merton is saying you can't underestimate the power of love. That's how people are really known. And that's what people remember, is how much they love. Now, before we finish up, gosh, y'all are giving such great chats. And Kathy, I want to go back and thank you for going back to all of that sticky wicket problem sentence. But I just want to say thank you very much for going back to that. Now, before we move toward wrapping up, any other things that need to be said about what we've done so far? Because y'all have been so brilliant tonight. All right. Then let's wrap it up here. Gosh, what a great turnout. What a great group of folks. Now let me bring up the share again. Now, let's see if I'm getting it right. Yes. Y'all can see that, right?
Yep.
Good. Thank you. So, what was that, the last one? I thought there was one more. Okay. So, I will also put in no, I'll wait on that. So let me stop and see, and Richard has sent me some messages also. Anything else that needs to be said about tonight? I really, really understand how rough this has been. Richard, thanks for those photos. I'm going to put them in. So I'm going to stop the share and see if there's anything else that we need to say before we wrap this up for tonight. And we'll have one more. Hope and I talked about this at lunch. We're going to have one more session next Tuesday night and then take a break until the new year because everybody's Advent is getting really messed up. And Terry, I promise you I'm going to address 1 Corinthians 5 next 15, whatever it is. Yep, next time. 1 Corinthians 15. So any other wrap up? Martin, have you made all the points that you were going to make?
I'm just tickled by the idea of Advent being messed up.
You're tickled by Advent being what?
Messed up. What you said is all of our Advents are getting messed up. I'm just tickled by that.
Oh, thanks for saying that. Okay, that is. I want to go back to Gary. So, all right, that's going to be in the PowerPoint as well. So the New York Times has had 3 different very long analysis pieces about Frank Gehry. And one of them that has me so excited, and I used this word in my sermon this past Sunday, and I'm going to send you the link to this sermon from this past Sunday, is they called him the disruptor in architecture. And I have a theory that folks who are really connected in with God, the creator who never stops creating, that those folks are disruptors. Because evolution is always disrupting what has been the status quo. And that's one of the quotes that I'll put in from the sermon today. That preacher went into the status quo being in the inconsistent with love. Love is always going to create something that's new and is not maintaining the status quo. Because love is the creative's energy, it's the creator's energy. So I'll try to get all this into a PowerPoint and get it to you.
That's what the Merton article talks about too. He said if we love our structures, we can't move on.
Glory! I'm having a glory attack. All right, any other words? Please don't hesitate to email me and give me your thoughts. And Reagan, I'm going to come back to your point about the surrender. That's one more thing I wanted just to talk about. Hope's dis-ease with the word surrender and the concept.
Yeah.
And Reagan bringing in what surrender means in the recovery experience. Martin?
I think the great thing that Gary transported or shared with his students was change is not something to be afraid of. And he embraced technology and what it could do. And he built models, MRI, and helped him draw what he drew at Bilbao and all these other buildings. He was not afraid of the future. That's a fabulous gift to give to folks. We're facing it every day.
Thank you, Martin. All right, before we thank you, Martha. You've just shared something. Okay, let me get that. Y'all's chats are so fantastic. Martha, thanks. The stump that was in the planter at the front of the tree died, but the stump had to come out before something else was planted. Got it. Okay, good deal. Thank you. Wonderful. All right, Kathy, thank you very much for affirming me that even though I was rushed today, for doing this tonight, it was really important to me. I think I'm beginning to understand what contemplation is and love. So, y'all, and I couldn't be where I am without this community. So I'm really, really grateful. Really, really grateful. And Martha, I'll get you something. I mean, sorry, Anna, I'll get you something so that you've got a PowerPoint. So it's 7:58. Want any last words before we pray?
I like that the energy of the disruptor is love, because disruptors can be just shit disturbers. They just want to destroy, and
Yeah.
they don't have a good attitude. But no, a real disruptor's energy is love. That's wonderful.
Thanks, Terry. Thanks for taking us back to that. I promise you, and I'm making myself a note. I'm going to give you in this polished PowerPoint a quotation from this New York Times article about disruption, and try to just underscore what you've just said. That we're not talking about. I'm sorry, I'm thinking and writing at the same time. We're not talking about a destroyer. And that's the difference between a destruction and disruption. Is the disruption, when it is motivated by love, is in the service of advancing all of us into what I think Isaiah 11 is talking about. He says, on this holy mountain, folks are not going to hurt one another. And that is what so here's my gospel. When you and I get in touch with the inner light, and we are no longer seeing ourselves as worms, wretches, and having no life in us, no health in us, we understand that we do have light and life inside of us, that it is love, and it disrupts in the service of everybody having justice and inclusion and nonviolence. Well, here we are. It's 8 o'clock. Let's breathe a few breaths deeply. Thank you all so much. Write me if you've got more insights. Let's breathe deeply. We thank you, O Holy Communion, for our communion, for our embodying your loving communion, to learn, to encourage, to love, to offer ourselves as instruments of your newness. Thank you for this night. Thank you for safe travel. Thank you for the love that binds us together, both the living and those who have passed. All these things we offer in gratitude, in the name and the energy of love. Amen. Thank you all very, very, very much. I can't tell you.
Amen.
Namaste, everybody. See you next Tuesday.
Hold on. Let me talk to you for just a moment.
Okay, I'll stay on.
Our book club.
Okay, I'll stay on, Anna.
The
Everybody else can leave if you want to. Yes, Anna.
The lady who puts on the dinner at St. Paul's on Wednesday nights.
Yep.
Has taken a leave of absence for the holidays.
Oh.
So I came last Wednesday and nobody was there. The halls were dark. So we're already on our Advent break.
Got it.
So you don't have to worry about the PowerPoint,
okay,
for that purpose.
That'll make my day tomorrow a little more human. Thank you.
Okay. Good.
Thank you.
Well, good night.
Good night. Love you all. Namaste.